Well, hello everybody. So we'll give it a minute to populate the chat running tonight, both on YouTube and over on Facebook. I'll try to run both of them. Let me know if you can hear it or if there's any audio things going on. But it's been a while since just had a general Q&A, AMA, just catch you up on what's going on the farm. If you've got any questions you'd like to cover tonight, feel free to drop them in. But I did put on YouTube like 2 months ago saying, hey, if you have any kind of questions or topics you want to discuss, put them on this post and I'll answer it in a few days. And here it is 2 months later. And so finally getting around to that. So we'll jump right into those questions and cover them. The reason that there is a reason. There's never excuses, but there's reasons. The reason is this has been a very short-staffed year for us, and most farms I talk to is having skilled labor is a big problem, and it's been a big issue for us as well. So it's been a lot of just Laura and I having to be out on the farm working, 10, 12, 14 hours a day, and no one really wants to do a video at the end of that because you're all tired out. So that is the reason, not the excuse though. And I will get to it here. So just setting up something here. Hopefully I can see the comments as they come from the Facebook group. All right, so we'll jump right into that huge list of questions that was there. Definitely, if you've got more, something you want to talk about, any kind of topic, I'm going to be here for a while just hanging out this evening. Went and got a fresh haircut today, so looking sharp. We'll jump right into these questions that were put over on YouTube. So the first one was, what would you do if you weren't doing this? And that's an interesting question. It's hard to know what you would do in life if you were doing something other than what you are currently doing. I always said that for me, farming is the sum of things that I enjoy doing. So I enjoy working outside. I enjoy working with animals. Certainly chainsaws, skid steer, tractors, all that kind of stuff. It's fun as well. So I'm not sure though. Maybe I would still be in some kind of aviation community. I was in the Marine Corps. I worked on F-18 fighter jets for 5 years. Maybe doing something totally different. I don't really know. Me, I think the important thing though is always doing something that you find purpose in and fulfillment for the most part, and that is always kind of an adventure. Just doing something that is none of those things and has no fulfillment to it. Your life is way too short for that kind of time wastage. Second question. Hello, fellow woodsman. So this is a Marine talking here. As a vet, what can you say are some of the things you wish you knew before starting your farm? Looking to pretty much do the same thing as you, appreciate the content. So, speaking specifically to veterans and military people getting into farming, the biggest thing that you won't have once you start the farm is that huge support network that you have in the military. And, we all love to complain about it, about the chain of command and base medical and the chow halls and all this stuff. But those are things that are there when you're in the military that you can certainly take advantage of. I'm noticing now that this light here is very poorly placed, so I do apologize. So, when you start a farm, it's going to be a much smaller community that is around you and available. Resources that you can tap into are going to be much more limited. You can't go down to the motor pool and check out a tractor, as nice as that would be. You can't hop over to a sister squadron when you need a special tool and you just give them your little tool tag and say, hey, let me borrow this tool for a day. So knowing that when you're transitioning from the military to starting a farm, you're going to be a solo act for the most part. You might have family or a few friends around, but you're going to be missing that big network that you used to have around you when you were in big Army or big Navy or small Marine Corps. Next question. Pig question here. If you could plant one tree crop throughout pasture for the hogs, what tree crop would you choose and why? Oaks, chestnuts, walnuts, apples, honey locust, pears, etc. So the question on you, like, what are you going to plant for pigs? It's going to be very specific to where you live. The trees that work here in Virginia are going to be something totally different, in Maine or in Florida or Texas or California. But two things that I would look for when selecting trees for a hog pasture, and for us, it's a process of cutting away trees, not adding trees, because we run our pigs almost entirely on wooded ground, is looking at what kind of trees are tolerant to the pigs' damaging tendencies. And so any kind of fruity tree, apple, pear, cherry, gum trees, those are going to be gone pretty quick. The pigs are going to go after them. There's a couple types of trees that we've noticed pigs really do not mess with here in Virginia. Black walnut trees, they do not mess with. Hickory trees, they do not mess with, maybe just a slightest bit. And the third one, which is kind of surprising, is the ailanthus tree, like tree of heaven. A lot of people call it a sumac tree. Basically a trash tree, has no lumber value. It's usually kind of a junky tree that no one really cares about, but pigs don't mess with it at all. I've never seen one of them die from the pigs' disturbance of the ground around them, and they do provide a lot of shade. So, strictly as just a shade tree, they work out fantastically. So those are the three that we kind of go for in our hog ranges. Other ones will get chewed on periodically, especially by sows. That's one thing that we've learned, is the older a pig gets, the more likely it is to get into a tree and maybe tear it up a little bit. Pine trees, hemlock trees, even some oak trees, they're going to lay into at some point, especially during the winter. So, all right, so we're holding strong over on Facebook. You got any comments? Again, just doing a general kind of Q&A here, hanging out with you guys for the evening, and just chilling indoors for a little while. So we'll just keep going through all of these questions that y'all put up here before. Next question. Oh boy. So I was wondering if you'd ever thought about setting up your own processing facility as to not deal with the stresses and complications processing brings. Of course, your own facility would bring its own problems, but I was just wondering. Yeah, that's anybody who's in direct retail space and with meat knows that processing bottlenecks are a huge issue right now, especially if you're doing more than just 2 animals at a time. When you're trying to do full trailer loads, it's a big problem for us. Almost all of our pigs are going 4 hours away into Pennsylvania right now to get processed every 2 weeks, every week. And so that's a 8-hour round trip that I'm usually the guy making that trip. So give you guys a little brief overview. We actually were very deep into the process of opening our own fairly large facility here in Virginia that we've been working on over the last 2 years, because of course everyone's looking for processing space, and we didn't want to have just another small on-farm facility. We wanted something that would be at a scale that would have a lot of room for other people. We're talking maybe 3 to 5 million pounds a year type facility. And we actually got real deep into the process of doing that. We were contracted on a building. We had the USDA involved. We had a bunch of other entities involved, and it ended up falling apart kind of at the last minute when the local town that was supposed to do the water and sewer for the building got cold feet on the project and backed out entirely. So that's something within the last 3 months, 4 months, completely fell through. And so we've decided, we're just not going to pursue that right now. Like the question said, it's going to take a huge amount of time and effort, and we're just going to find a different way to address this problem. Not entirely sure what that'll be yet, but I do acknowledge it's a big problem. So thank you very much for the super chat there, JB Weld. Long time no see. Glad to have you online. Hope the farm is doing well. Yes, we are very busy. A lot of animals being raised. Not a lot of staff taking care of all of it. So we are all very gainfully employed these days. Another question from the chat here. Let me just make sure we got none over here on Facebook. Nope, don't see any. If you are putting some on Facebook, sorry, I can't see them. Come over to YouTube. So one from the live chat here on YouTube. What's your number one piece of advice on how to successfully market your farm products? Well, two things. One is making sure that you put on your hat of being a retailer as opposed to a farmer. And so that's a very different approach of selling products as opposed to producing them, and knowing who your target customer is and where to find them. Probably the easiest piece of advice I can give on that when you're learning to market products is the closer you can bring a farm product, whether it's produce, meat, dairy, or whatever, the closer you can bring that to consumption, the more the wider pool of a market is available, and the higher price point the market will bear. So how many people do you know that want to buy dairy cow? Not very many. How many people buy fresh raw milk? More, but not the whole population. How many people like to buy ice cream, in the middle of the summer? And so the job as a producer is to find what level of value adding do you need to go in order to find the market that will support the price point that you need for your product and the volume that you need to move. So, in some cases, like for us, we sell a lot of piglets, but our profit margin is a lot less there on that product because it's not very value added. It's just a sow. She has a piglet, you sell the piglet. But if you take that all the way through to, sausage, egg, and cheese muffin at a farmer's market, that's a lot more levels of value adding, and the price point that the market will carry and the pool of market that's available to you will be much larger. So it's finding what the market is interested in, what price point they can support, and then you move into that particular area. All right, another live chat question. Would you ever consider doing more videos, 1 or 2 a week, even if it means going blog style videos that show you doing everyday chores and projects? Thanks for that comment there, August. It's certainly something that we would like to do with this channel. The problem right now is just time. And so that's why it's, like for this is not a shot and edited video. We're just going to do a live stream and hang out together. So maybe we just need to do more of this, which is now actually possible for us to do because we got our Starlink system a few months ago, which has, brought our internet speed out of the Stone Ages into, something slightly more modern. But it is something that we know is an opportunity there to do more on the education side and more on the social media side. It's just a matter of time management right now being the problem. Let me see here. Go to the live chat. Make sure I haven't missed anything. Cool. All right, back to our list of questions. Let's see. I have your pig feeder IBC tow plans. Looking forward to building it. Many thanks for your contribution to help others. That's Ronnie. Thanks, Ronnie. Yeah, we use a lot of these things. So if you haven't seen it yet, we've got some videos on the channel about the IBC pig feeder, what we use for all of our feeder pigs on the farm. And we do have plans available on the website, which is builder.us, where it's a full PDF of how to build one of those things. And essentially it's how to build a bulk pig feeder that let's say probably around $300 plus or minus now with some inflationary influences, but a lot cheaper than a couple grand for probably the Farm or Osborne one. Let's see. Next question, same guy from Ronnie. We raise 1,300 to 1,500 Cornish birds using chicken tractors, 250 to 300 per batch. We are wanting to consider the large movable tractor that can hold 500 or so. Our ground is not level, so we feel this will be a problem. What is your experience of the large tractor in uneven ground? It really depends on how uneven are we talking. Just some slight rolling ground, or are we talking about like huge ditches running through your fields? and that's something you just have to know what your ground can handle and the slopes and so on. For us, we have rolling ground, across the 20-foot span that our DPRCs move. You could have a foot to 18 inches of undulation through there. And the way that we have solved that is by using floor mats that you would have out in front of your porch, kind of those big rubber floor mats. And we have those attached to a rail that's about a foot off the ground, along on the ground, and they in the gaps in the field. I see you there, Greg, on Facebook, trying to come in on the chat. Let's see, a couple more here on YouTube. Love your stuff. Inspired us to start Love Rock Farm. Hey, that's awesome, guys. That's was our goal years ago when we started doing the farm builder content, was to just show more of the realities of doing these things at a larger scale, size, a lot bigger than a lot of the homestead or farmstead channels. So hope it's going well for you guys, and would love to hear updates as you guys keep going along. Pete Peterson, will you always do a cull-cow system, or will you change to cow-calf program in the future? Very good question. Love the cattle questions. You would be surprised, perhaps, from watching the content of the channel, that pigs are actually not my favorite animal. Cows are. Pigs are the majority of what we do, but I love doing the cow side. It's just we have a lot less ground that we can do for cows. So what I really like about the cull-cow program is usually cull cows are not in a big hurry to go anywhere. So, we've never had like the cull cow herd run away. So, they're nice, gentle, old cows that don't want to go anywhere too fast. The numbers work well when you start looking at the economics of a sell-buy-sell program. We get these extra calves that we can sell in the fall. And we sell a lot of ground beef, which old cows are really good for doing. Now, could I see a point where we have a cow-calf herd? Yeah, of course. Probably what would influence that is just an astronomical rise in the cattle market, which may happen. Who knows? We are in the wild west of commodities right now, to the point where it's no longer a viable model to buy in old cows. I don't know if that would ever happen, because a cull animal is always going to have a cull price compared to the primo stuff, So even if cull cows go to $1.50 or $2 a pound, that means calves are going to be $4, $5, $6 a pound. But say some Elon, big daddy bucks Elon Musk called me up and said, "Hey, I want you to come start a grass-fed beef program on my 10,000 acre ranch in Central Virginia." That might entice me. So yeah, it's a possibility. I really do like the cull cow program, though. Another comment here on YouTube: will continued inflating input costs make it difficult for small farmers to remain in business and allow others to get started? Unfortunately, I will agree with you on that, John. I think 2022 is actually going to be the hardest year on small farms, far harder than 2021 or 2020, for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of farmers that I'm talking to, and I'm saying a lot, who are in the direct to retail space, are very burned out right now. It's been a 2-year just campaign of COVID, basically, and what that did to their marketing. Completely changed how farms had to market. Demand dropped through the floor or went through the roof. Everyone's scrambling just to adjust and catch up. And this year is doing no one any favors at all. That now we have this crush of inflation coming in, and grain prices going up, input prices are going up. The price of everything is going up. The price of labor is just going up. We are starting college kids who are home for the summer with no farm experience. We're having to start them at 18 an hour just to get people on the farm who can, you can say, "Hey, pick up this and go move it over there." And they're good guys. I'm not complaining about their willingness to work and all that. That's been fantastic. But That's basically just unskilled labor is costing us 18 an hour, and skilled labor we can't even touch. We've got some ads out earlier this year for more skilled managerial positions. It's $60,000-$70,000 a year, and not getting any nibbles on it. So all of that added together, I think, is going to be a huge crushing effect on small direct to retail farms, and we'll see how it pans out. Now, Mike is cutting out. Sorry about that. Can talk louder, I guess. Here, mute, unmute, check. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Could be my Starlink connection, the satellites are transitioning, something like that, Certainly, if you're looking to start a farm this year, it's a good idea to start a farm. I sleep well at night knowing that there's 10,000 pounds of meat in my freezer outside. But everything is just really high to start. Land is high. Good luck getting stuff like Premier Fencing. They're extremely back ordered from what I hear. I called the canopy company, Shelter Logic. We use some of their canopies on our different wagons for shade for the turkeys, and I called them last week needing just replacement canopies, and she actually laughed. She was like, call back in a month, we'll see if we have some. So just supply shortages is a big issue. Across the board, it's a real challenge, but that doesn't mean it's not something that you should undertake and endeavor to do. What pig breed or cross best suits your system? So I don't think it's breed specific. I think it's management specific. You can take most of your standard breeds. We'll exclude the exotics from the equation, but I think you can take most of your standard breeds, and over the course of 5 to 7 years, you can adapt them to your management system. So whether it's a Tamworth, Wattles, large blacks, old spots, what we have is a Hampshire Duroc cross. You can essentially mold those genetics to adapt to your management system. Basically, by the ones that are compliant with how you do fence, they stay, and the ones that aren't, they go. And so obviously, you're going to have more and more of the compliant pigs than the uncompliant ones. So I think it's when this kind of question comes up, I always encourage people to focus on what is your management protocol, what's your management system going to be, and get that really dialed in. If you're going to spend money on that, and as opposed to going out and spending a bunch of money on some kind of papered breed or some breed that has this awesome reputation online that might not actually translate to performance in the field. So we started out with just keeping the best female feeder pigs from groups that we bought from other producers that we were getting from back 10, 12 years ago when we started breeding. So most of our genetics actually came from a small farm that only had 8 sows, like an hour from here, and they just had really good pigs. They did well in our system, and that's what we started with. And so built it out from there. We've had a closed herd for like 10 years now. So I bought 14 acres this year. I'm working on building out my small farm. Hey, that's awesome. Work on things that increase efficiency, lower the amount of repetitive tasks that you have to do. Anything that can accomplish those two things on a small farm really help a lot. Good example would be like a water system. As opposed to toting water around, you have something that's pushing water through pipes around. Let me flip over here to the Facebook. Let's see here. All right, no comments from Facebook. Oh, we do have a comment here. At what point is an on-location farm stand sustainable for meat and poultry, running cost and inventory wise? That's a good question. So, like our farm store, as a standalone entity, certainly doesn't pull its weight. It does maybe 12% of our retail sales, rough numbers, let's say. But it is also a multi-purpose facility. That's where we do all of our loading for our drop sites up in the Northern Virginia, DC area, and Tidewater of Virginia. where we load all of our shipping orders, etc. And that's really where the value of it comes in, that during the week, we're doing all that stuff in there. And then on the weekends, it's open for retail sales. So you're not going to get a huge percentage of your customer base to come to you, especially now in the post-COVID age. People are used to products coming to them even more so now. But if you can have an on-farm store that has all of the aesthetics that people want to see when they come to a farm store, and you can launch a tour out of there and all that stuff, but you're also using it as your facility for packing orders, for shipping, doing all this other stuff, then it kind of makes sense to build one out. But having a standalone farm store where all you're doing is retail sales, we're not big enough or have enough customer pull to do something like that. It's really only very well located farms that are in those highly trafficked areas that can do that, or someplace that like a polyface that's like a mecca that everyone wants to go to, even though it's out in the sticks there. People will still drive the 10 different back road turns to get back there in order to go out and see their farm. But yeah, very good question there. Keep them coming, but we'll go on with the list that we had before, because it was pretty long. Holding strong, Facebook and YouTube. Love seeing everybody here tonight on a Tuesday, most random night of the week, but I have the house to myself for a while. That's why we're doing it. Let's see. Thank you for the videos. Can you talk about the processing process for a complete beginner? What to look for when selecting a processor? When to book? Do you just take the pigs in a trailer and drop it off, and once the meat is ready, do you bring it back and store it in the freezer? I'd like to rotate probably 10 pigs to start through my forest this year. So before you even buy your pigs, you need to call all the processors around you. And this is where something like a big Facebook group is good, that you can ask other farmers, hey, have you heard of XYZ processor? Do they generally do good work? Every processor will have mistakes that they make. They are working with a lot of new people and training people, and have unskilled people who, usually the first job that unskilled labor does is packing the boxes of product. They're not cutting the carcasses. And so every processor will have occasions where they screw something up, and someone's going to say, oh, that processor sucks, they screwed up my order. Every processor is going to have that. But you have to look in the aggregate, do they have more positive reviews than negatives? And then call them up. First thing I'm going to ask is, hey, I'd like to do 10 pigs. What dates next year do you have? Right now, most processors are 6 to 18 months out, booked up. So call a few processors, talk to them. How will they work with you on the different kind of things that you want to have cut, or the sausages that you made. So ask them, do they do 1 ounce length, 2 ounce length, 4 ounce length? For pigs, do they do vacuum sealing? Do they do trays? That type of stuff. If you're catering to a more natural market, do they do MSG free spice blends for the sausage? If you can, go out and visit them. Just look at the facility, look at how they do their packaging, talk to their customer service reps, etc. Maybe it might be worth just buying 1 pig from someone and sending it through, just to see how the process goes before you commit your whole season's grow out to that one slaughter date. But you're going to talk to the processor. You're going to set up the date for your critters. I always like to make sure that the processor is telling me if that is the drop date or the kill date, because some processors, they'll say August 27th. And that means, for them, that might mean they want you to deliver the animals on August 27th, anytime during the day, because they're going to do them on the 28th. But for other processors, that means they're going to kill them on the 27th, and they better be there on the evening of the 26th, or really early on the 27th. So make sure you identify if the drop date, if that's a drop date or the kill date. The next thing to do is make sure you actually deliver the animals on those dates. The number one thing that'll piss off a processor is if you don't show up with the animals that you booked, or you bring less than you had booked, or you bring more without talking to them. So hold up your end of the arrangement with honesty and integrity. So you drop the animals off if they're going to be USDA inspected, or even custom done. They will take it from there. They'll typically call you back like 10 days later and say, hey, your stuff's ready, come pick it up. And that's where it's on you to get back there in a timely manner, pick up all your stuff, bring it back to the farm, put it in your freezers, and then distribute it out to your customers. If you want to, you can do a cut audit, which is what we periodically do, just to know like what our cutouts are on different carcasses and stuff. So that's where we would take, say, 3 pigs, have them isolated from the rest as far as how they're packaged and done. So it works really well if you have some custom animals done, because the processor has to keep that animal completely segregated from all the other animals, because it's going to a specific person. And so it makes it very easy to actually weigh everything up, and you can do a cut audit of what's the yield coming off of those animals. And that's the kind of data that's very helpful for you when you get into how to price your product and so on. So you also should treat an experience, especially the first time taking animals to the processor, as a data collection point as well, because you're going to get critical data on like how much sausage are you getting, bacon, chops, etc. That will help you set up your price list. So another from Prismatic Farm: how many pigs per acre of wood lot should you start? Really depends on if you're doing sows, we'd stock at 2 sows per acre. So if you have 20 acres, you could do 40 sows. You may want to do less. We're seeing some long-term damage from that stocking rate, so maybe drop it down to 1 sow per acre. And if you're doing feeder pigs in the woods, you could probably go anywhere between 5 and 10. So if you had 20 acres of woods at a 5 pig per acre stocking rate, that means you could run 100 pigs through that woods over the course of a year, and rotating them around and so on. Let's jump over to the Facebook, see what we got here. All right, no comments there. Quiet crowd on the Facebook tonight. All right, back to our question list. Would you be able to expound on broadcast seeding and annuals, i.e. sorghum sedan, if the pigs are supplement grazing for the cows? As far as added forage, is it cost effective, assuming cost and labor of seed? So this is a question along the lines of our overseeding program that we do in conjunction around pasture and in the woods with our pigs. So when you're moving pigs across the land, they are doing a lot of disturbance, and you can utilize that disturbance by overseeding a high value annual. So during the cold season, we use things like oats, barley, rye, kind of your cold cover crops. In the summer, we use sorghum, sudan grass, and millet. And so we're using the pigs to stir the ground. They do naturally on their own. 1 to 3 days before their next scheduled move, we go into the paddock, overseed it with our seeds. The pigs then, of course, smell the seed, and they get to work snuffling the ground again, looking for those seeds. They eat some, but not much. We found anything smaller than a sunflower seed, typically they don't get much of. If it's bigger than a sunflower seed, so if you're doing like pumpkin seeds or corn seeds, they're gone. They can lick all those up. But pigs are stirring those seeds into the ground, and then the pigs are leaving. That's the important part, is the pigs got to leave. So you have no more disturbance. That can then germinate and come on up. So we found that worked very well in some instances, not so well in others. Really, soil moisture has a huge amount to do with it. The amount of disturbance, bare soil, etc. But for us, it's a soil control thing that we do. We want to control erosion as much as possible in the woods. And so the pigs are just going to eat that when they come back around. The barley is primarily what we use, and the pigs are going to mow that down. We did a very rough calculation this year on a pasture that we had overseeded with barley over the winter. So the pigs went through the area during the winter. We overseeded it with the barley, probably at about 100 pounds of barley an acre. So let's say roughly 2 bushels, which would be $15 worth of seed, running it through the spin seeder on the back of the tractor. And when we just finished a group of finishing hogs coming back through that pasture, we estimated that there was about $250 worth of barley per acre. So we spent 15 on the seed. We actually grazed the barley as grass in the spring with the cattle, so we're not even counting what they got there. But then we grazed the dough stage through dry down barley with the pigs, and it was roughly, say, $250 an acre worth of barley that they were getting just from foraging those plants and eating the grain heads. So it certainly did pay off there. With the sorghum Sudan, we definitely are boosting our cow days for that late summer grazing. Again, you struggle with consistency on the pasture if you're using just pigs and just broadcast seeding as opposed to drilling. But we certainly pushed, say an average graze day in August for us with 70 head, we would be on 1.5 acre to 2 acre type of paddock. We were able to push them down to like a 2/3 of an acre paddock by grazing the sorghum Sudan. So it was essentially tripling, I would say, the amount of biomass per acre. I have not run kind of the rough numbers on that, but hopefully that's enough to get you going on that. So anyone located in Ohio, there's a company called White Feather Meats for a processor. Sounds good. A couple more comments popped in here real quick. Is it a bad idea to have pigs on wet, poorly drained soil? Yeah, I mean, it's going to kind of suck. But this time of year in the summer, they're certainly going to be happy. It depends on, are we talking hilly or flat? If it's in a flat area, they're going to till it up real good, but at least you won't have the runoff and erosion issues. Is it frozen in the winter? Just understand the wetter your soil is, the more the pigs are going to root into it. So maybe you have to move them faster or allow the ground to recover longer. Let's see. Okay, ProHome, same guy. I'm in Alberta, Canada. So when it's frozen in the winter, yeah, I think you would be fine. But in the summer, you might have to take steps to mitigate runoff. That would be something I would definitely watch out for. If it gets down to -40 Fahrenheit with the pigs need heat. That's some cold weather. That's a little bit colder than we get here in Virginia. That's for sure. Do the pigs need heat? It depends on how big they are. If they are piglets, you're going to have, I think you would have problems, especially if you only had a few. If you had a few hundred, pigs really operate as a hive heat source in the winter. I know there's people in Canada who run pigs on pasture in the winter, but they have these huge hay piles that are wind shielded, and the pigs just make these big nests in them and basically bury themselves with hay during that really cold nights. So if you can get huge hay piles going, and especially get that compost heating action during the winter, yeah, there's definitely people who do it in that kind of cold weather. But if you're just going to toss some pigs on the pasture and it's 40 below, yeah, they're going to be popsicles the next morning. The best thing to always do in these kind of situations is try to find someone who's doing pigs close to the way you want to do it, as close to where you are, and kind of leech off of their model, see what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and try to adapt what you want or what you like from their system into yours, and kind of leverage the experience that they've already had. Another one from August. What are your thoughts on raising bison? Do you see a demand for bison meat in the small farming sector? It certainly seems to be a niche thing. My only thing that I've seen with raising bison is you've got to have like Fort Knox fencing to handle those things. It is a tank that doesn't stop, and it's going to roll through whatever is in its way. So if it's something that you want to handle and you've got the facilities to handle it, there's certainly a demand for kind of the niche stuff, the exotic stuff. It's got a good marketing story that you certainly could take advantage of. Hey, this is restoring the original North American herbivore, the bison, and try it out. Sure, I'd eat it. All right, well, let's keep going here. I'm having fun. Hope you guys are too. Sticking around for another 20 minutes or so. Back to our list. Let's see. Where in the enterprise? Okay. So in what area of the farm is the business side is the best place to invest money towards labor? Very fitting question. Part-time summer harvest helpers, accountants, project managers, etc. This could be a whole hour kind of topic itself here, but where's the best place to spend your money? Labor-wise, is it just bringing in a bunch of helpers and then you're out there running a big crew? Is it hiring subcontractors? Is it farming out from the farm certain elements of the business? And I say yes, it's kind of a combination of all the above. For us, there are certain things we don't want to mess with and mess up, primarily being taxes. And so we use an accounting company that does all of our books, all of our taxes. We do a lot of the data entry on our side, but they're always looking over it, making sure things are getting filed at the appropriate times, handling any correspondence from taxation entities. And that's something that when you get into a business, even if you're doing everything right, you are going to be in communication with either your state taxes or sales taxes or IRS or what have you. They're going to be up in your business at some point, and having those kind of professionals there are very helpful. So we try to push out things that we're not good at and hire in people or businesses that can handle that side, accounting being a big one. Another one is we do hardly any of the maintenance on our equipment. We have mobile mechanics that come in and work on our trucks on the farm, come in, do the servicing on the tractors and other machines. Are those things that we could do? Yes. Are those things that we're pros at? No. We're focusing on what parts of the business, what elements of the business are we the ones who have to handle that? We are the best equipped to do that specific thing, and no one else can really come in and do that. That's what you need to focus on when you are owning and operating a business. What tasks can you not farm out to someone else that you must do? And then how much of the other stuff does it make sense to have somebody else do? So whether you decide to keep all of these tasks in-house or to externalize them to other firms, I think is kind of a judgment call that you need to make for yourself. But our position is we'd like to have experts for those specific areas that they know things that we don't know, and it's worth, I've always said the best money that we spend every month is on accounting. That, they get a big check every month, but when the IRS sends me a letter about some stupid thing, I just scan it and send it to them, and they can talk to each other over there and figure it out. Let's see, go back over this question again. Project managers. Yeah, so if you have construction projects going on, see if that's something that you can bring in other people to build that for you. Again, if you are fully engaged in your farm business, doing what's making money and what you are on task and on point doing, bring in other people to help you for those other things. Summer harvest laborers, certainly, especially when school is out. We have, you can have kids come in to pick fruits and vegetables on your farm. We have a collection of teenagers that help with our chicken processing in the summer, and they're very motivated to make money, and they're making pretty good money here working for us. And that frees like Laura and I up not to have to be involved with chicken processing all the time. So good question there. Your pigs eat less grain than those traditionally raised. What do you gain because pigs are raised on grass? So I don't know. I don't know what the typical amount of grain eaten by a commodity pig is, or what they would purport their numbers to be. The reason that we are putting pigs on pasture is not necessarily to reduce the amount of grain that they eat. In fact, I would speculate they probably eat more because they're actually exercising more. The pig is moving his body more. He's flexing those legs and hams, and he's running around the pasture, and he's digging and using his neck and all that, and that's burning calories. we're not putting them on the pasture to necessarily reduce the feed bill. We're putting them on the pasture because it allows the pig to express his pigness, which produces the highest quality pork possible. Eating those other forages that are out there, eating roots, eating grubs that are in the ground, toning those muscle groups in his body, exercising, laying in the sun, laying in the mud, rolling in the dirt. All of those things put together is what builds a superior tasting product. And then also, when putting that pig back into nature, we don't have to shovel out barns full of manure. We don't have lagoons that have to be pumped out. We're managing where the pigs are, and they're doing their business on the pasture, which is then benefiting the grass growth for the herbivores that come through, and whole discussion there of sequencing on the pasture and symbiotic relationships between different species and the soils and all that. But for me, the debate is over just on taste and quality. That when you have had pork from well-managed pigs on pasture, it's hard to go back and eat pork from commodity hogs. It's a struggle to eat barbecue anywhere else except here. I'm disappointed pretty much any time that I get the pork. Let's see. Do you have to worry much about nitrogen poisoning with a sorghum sedan grass? It's not been an issue yet for us. Not saying it is something to be concerned about, but it's not. Probably because we're not killing the pasture, we're drilling it in or broadcast seeding it in. So there's still a very high amount of fescue and orchard grass, clover, other weeds there for the cows to graze on. And could also be because we're running a cull cow herd. Older cows seem to tolerate a much wider variety of stuff coming into their diet. More piggy questions here. Just check the chats here, make sure we're up to speed there. All right, nothing here. Top chats. All right. Mr. Todd Caskey in the house. Hello, Marine, do you worm? I don't worm, the pigs get wormed. Maybe I should worm myself on occasion. But yes, we do worm our piglets with Safeguard in the feed, and then typically once a year we worm the sow herd as well. It's a good standard practice to have. If you have pigs on a farm outdoors for an extended period of time, you will have worms and parasites. I've seen it every pig farm I've visited. If it hasn't happened to you yet, it's because you haven't had enough pigs for a long enough period of time, or you're just a superhero. So we do worm. It's just a good, standard practice to have. Let's see, more pig questions. I talk about the effects of pigs on pasture. For me, it would be the same pasture I graze cows on. How long do you leave them? How much do you repair after you move? What do you overseed with? So we talked a lot about overseeding before. Just on the first two questions, pigs will have an effect on pasture. Most noticeably the first couple times that you run pigs through, because everything's fresh and there's all the tubers and the grubs in the soil. And so the worst root is always the first one. All of our pastures are 5-7 years into having pigs on them. The rooting is far, far less than it used to be. Typically once a year, we'll run the skid steer through the pasture just to push in any holes that they've dug out. That being said, our pastures are a little bit rough. Like when we have it mowed for hay, our contractors who do that, they always like, pasture's so rough. What are you guys doing here? And you're like, well, we run pigs through. But I've noticed that when you talk about rough pastures or some holes here and there, nature doesn't care about that. Pigs don't care about it. Cows, I've never had the cows complain about there being holes in the pasture. What I have noticed is after it rains, especially if you get a heavy rain where a lot of water is coming down, those holes will be full with water for 10 minutes till it soaks into the ground. So we're actually capturing a lot of water on the pasture because we have divots and little ruts here and there, as opposed to just a flat surface that the water will run off of. So usually it's us that complain most about problems out on the pasture. The animals themselves, they don't really care that much, and that's kind of the approach that we've had on it. What are you drinking tonight? Oh, very fancy concoction of Gatorade and sparkling water. So All right, let's finish out this list here, guys. We're starting out. Let's see. I'm going to skip a couple of these questions here because they're kind of redundant. Where do you source seeds to plant after the pigs root up the area? So the barley that we use, that is a grain that we use in grinding our own feed. So we just take it out of the gravity wagon. All the other seeds that we use typically come from King Ag Seeds in Pennsylvania. What are your main sales outlets? How did you build your initial customer base? So when you're starting a farm, you are trying to access the customer base. The most important thing is getting your face in as front as of many other faces as possible. So it's getting your brand out there, and that's where doing things like farmers markets can be valuable. Your sales might not be that great, but you can be in front of a lot of people doing community day events in your towns, things that are not really great sales events, but they are great exposure events. Those are real important in the beginning. So the process we had was we would do a farmers market in a particularly affluent neighborhood. Most farmers markets here are seasonal. They shut down for the winter. So we would accumulate a customer base through the summer. We would transition them to a drop point or a buying club during the winter, where once a month we're coming up to that area and delivering to someone's house. Everyone can pick up their order. After a year or two of doing a market in that area and then switching them over to the drop site, we just would not do the market anymore, and it would be put into our customer list of drop sites. So we no longer do farmers markets, but that was a great way when we were starting that we got our name out there. Just brought a cough drop with me. Congratulations on your new farm. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll try to get some more videos from out there. A lot going on. And like I said earlier, we've just been slammed with doing stuff, but it's been a fun process to set that up and get pigs going up on the mountain. Let's see. Please explain your process of weaning. I'm just going to skip through this one because we have a whole video on how to wean piglets. So I would encourage you just to go find that. How long are the pigs in each paddock before you move them? 7 to 10 days, both for feeder pigs and sow sets. I want to hear about how you bought your sow farm with no money down. All right, so we can talk a little bit about this one. So, for those of you who may not have seen it, we had a video a while ago talking just a brief introduction to a farm that we bought back in 2020, and a little bit on the process. We looked at it initially in I think February of 2020. So COVID had not hit yet in the United States. It was kind of in the news about China, but nothing too crazy at that point. And we were looking to buy a place to expand the pig operation onto. So we found this piece of property, 167 acres, all woods, no utilities on the property at all. So the price was pretty low. We put an offer in and hammered them down like another 12% on the price. Not 12%, we cut them down, I think 5% on their price, but they paid for closing costs. And so we looked at a combination of FSA lending and farm credit is who we ended up using. So they have a new and beginning farmers program, which even though we were over the 10-year, we had been farming for more than 10 years at that point, we still were eligible before because we had never used the program before. I don't know, exactly how all that worked out, but anyway, if you have a commitment from a traditional lender, so like Farm Credit or another bank, FSA will come in as well as a 50% lender. So between both banks, they both covered 100% of the purchase price. And the reason that we did that, as opposed to bringing in our own capital as a down payment, is we wanted to keep that capital free to invest into the property for putting the water system in, building a pond, getting fence going, and then bringing in the animals to actually get started. At that time, interest rates were super low in 2020. So I think Farm Credit came in at like 5.25%, and FSA came in at 2.5%. So we ended up getting 100% financing at sub 4%, which is great for a business to buy raw land. Now, there are a few things, if you want to explore a similar route, to be aware of. One is you need to have a track record with the business. You're not just going to walk into your FSA office and say, "Hey, I want to buy a farm. Do you have $1 million that I can borrow? Here's my business plan for it." They're gonna be like, "All right, well, where's your financials for the last 3 years? What's your tax return? All this stuff." And so that's where having a professional accounting service that we've worked with for the last 10 years was super helpful. It's like, all right, boom, here's all of our books, here's the numbers, here's all the tax returns. So it was a whole process that was, it is a process you have to go through with the USDA to get lending, but it's not, I did not think it was overdone. You do have to write a business plan, what they call an operation narrative. So basically, this is what we're going to do with the place. Kind of the rough numbers of what your business plan will be. And I basically just pulled all of these documents together into a Google Drive folder and just shared the folder with them and said, "Here it is." And that had, it was enough information for them for that to work out. So we put an offer on the farm in March of 2020. All COVID broke loose after that. So I never met the sellers. Only met half the bankers one time. The closing was they came in one day and signed in the realtor's office, and then they like sanitized the whole room, and then we came in the next day and did it, because this was June 2020 when we actually closed on it, and everyone was just completely freaking out about COVID. And so that's how we bought our farm. And very unseen to us then was just the real estate explosion that happened the year after that. So we would not have been able to touch this farm now for anything close to what we got it for then. So we count ourselves very, very fortunate. But the funny story is we left closing with money. So because we had the seller assuming the closing costs, that's put into the contract, like how much they're going to bring to the table for that. And it ended up coming in a little bit below that. So we left the closing with a new piece of property and a check for like $87. So got some lunch with that. All right. So questions here in the chat. What percent do you save grinding your own feed, do you think? It's about 30 to 40%. It is significant savings to grind your own feed. Now you do have to have some scale to make that work. But we are grinding probably 20,000 pounds a week of feed right now. So it works out for us. It is a significant savings. Brett Winslow, do you have any sources of simple instructions for the basics of keeping track of the money side of farming? Quickbooks Online. That's what we use to run our books. We also use a whole bevy of Excel sheets, Google sheets that we've developed ourselves. So two things I would recommend if you're starting a farm business is a Google Drive, where you can have a lot of sheets and documents that you can have stored in the cloud. So if your computer crashes or drowns, you haven't lost it. And also, however many people you have on the team of your farm can access that at any time. And then QBO, QuickBooks Online, it's a system. It's like anything else. You have to learn how to use it. It's a tool that will only be as effective as your wielding of it. But that has been very helpful for us. And if you don't keep track of the money side, you won't have any very, very shortly. Do you need to be licensed to process your own chickens, cows, and pigs from August there? So it depends on where you are. Here in the United States, you definitely, well, I guess the context of your question, are you processing them for your own personal consumption? So if you are just butchering them yourself, then no, you don't have to have any kind of licensing or anything like that. But if you are going to sell that meat, then yes, you do. For poultry in the United States, there's a federal law called PL 9492, so PL 90-492, which is a federal exemption for processed poultry processing to sell at retail or wholesale. But it also has an additional layer of state regulation on it. So it's a good thing to know what the specifics of your state are. So in Virginia, we have a issued exemption from the state that allows us to process 20,000 birds a year on farm. Red meat, which would be cows, pigs, sheep, goats, kangaroos, llamas, etc. Those all have to be done at either a custom facility or a state inspected facility or a USDA facility. If you're doing it on the legal up and up, which I would recommend doing. You can get away with the backyard slaughter facility for a period of time, but eventually something is going to happen and people are going to be notified and you will have the black SUVs rolling into your farm. All right, let's see if we got anything left here on the master list here. Still running cows? If so, can we get an update? Yep, definitely doing the cull herd, rocking and rolling with that. I wish I had more of them right now. Actually, we've got a lot of grass, but I think herbivores are going to be a big thing here in the next couple of years. Grain prices are already really high. They're going to keep going up from everything that I have heard. So herbivores, the nice thing about an herbivore, let's make sure I don't have any more comments over here, is the cost of grass inflates at a much steadier and lower rate than the cost of grains. Will the cost for pasture leases go up and hay go up? Yes, but it will be a lot more stable than the wild fluctuations of grain. For example, like for us, barley in years past, we usually would pay usually around like $4 a bushel for it. This spring, it got up to like $9.55 was the highest we paid for barley before the 22 harvest came in, and now it's settled down at like $6.50. So we're already paying 60% more for barley than we did just a few years ago. And things like minerals are high, soybean meal is really high, corn is high, and then of course the diesel to run the grinder mixers to mix all this stuff is not getting any cheaper, which leads me to think that the opportunity will be in herbivores, whether you're doing goat, sheep, or cattle. Is not as important as you have a grass-based protein source that is a little bit independent from the fluctuations of the grain market. The grain market is going to be pretty wild for the next few years. I think what we've learned from COVID is economic factors do not ripple through the whole market for 6 to 12 months. So the problems that is in the news right now, like the fertilizer shortage and the urea shortage and the shortage of this, that, and the other, that's not reflected in the market yet. That's going to come in 6 to 12 months. So right now, what we're dealing with is the economic factors of last summer and last fall. And so we could be in a scenario next year where grain prices are much higher than they are right now. And I don't know if I would want to be doing a huge amount of pigs. It might be better to do cows. Who knows? But maybe that's a direction that we have to look at. But all right, I am through the list here. So any save rounds you guys have? It's a military term there that when you're out on the range, shooting your weapons, they always, at the end of the day, any save rounds. And if you have them, so it's basically an unshot cartridge. If you have one in your pocket for some reason, or still have a magazine that has a round in it, you either need to give it back or you need to shoot it down range pretty quickly, because you should not be leaving the range with live rounds. So when we say saved rounds, that means last questions, because it's getting about time for bed here. All right, let's see here. How is processing schedule in your area currently? Still a nightmare in North Carolina. Yeah, I would imagine it's still pretty far out. We've just gotten into the mode of booking 12 months out. So we booked all of 2022 back in like June of 21. We're already talking schedule for 23 with our different processors and negotiating that. We've just assumed that it's always going to be at least a year out from now. And so we don't even try to get anything closer than that. But I'd imagine they're still all real booked up. That labor is a huge problem for processors right now as well. They just can't get enough help in there, and getting help to stay. Turnover is big. Companies are offering huge incentives right now to get employees. It's nuts, the piracy that's going on. Let's see, a couple more questions here. Oh, okay. What do you do with the pigs? You get them butchered, or do you sell them to Salatin or Polyface Farm? So Polyface Farm buys piglets from us. We sell piglets to a lot of other farms on the East Coast. Um, Polyface is certainly one of our bigger customers, but they're not the majority of who buys all of our piglets. So no, they do not buy finished pigs from us. They do buy piglets that they grow out. And so if you have bought pork from Polyface, you are more than likely eating our genetics, our pigs' genetics. For a while, way back in our beginning days, 12, 13 years ago, um, we were growing out some hogs for them. They had just picked up a Chipotle contract and needed some additional production. And so that's kind of one of the things that helped us get our start was, I think they said you could grow like 80 pigs a year or something like that for us. And that gave us a little bit of a start into doing pigs. So with our pigs, the vast majority of them are sold as piglets. We do a couple thousand piglets a year are sold off to farms from Maine to North Carolina right now. Kind of seems to be the spread. A lot of them going to the north of us, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New York, New Hampshire, kind of up in that area. This year, we've actually sold a lot of finished pigs this year, surprisingly. We sent a tractor trailer load of finished pigs down to the Gulf Coast in the spring, along with a bunch of piglets. Other ones in like West Virginia and Pennsylvania. So it's kind of piecing together, what the market will give us, and having a profitable price point at any stage of an animal's life is kind of key to diversifying the scope of customers that you can serve. So we can sell piglets to someone. We can sell 150-pound pigs to someone, which we've done. We can sell 300-pound pigs to someone, which we've done as well. And then, obviously we sell pork chops and, bacon and pork snack sticks. So having that wide range of price points allows us to plug and play product at any point along the way to achieve a profitable sale. And that's, part of setting up prices correctly and knowing your costs and all that, which is a perfect segue into a plug for the Farrow to Finish School. We have not done really any advertising about that yet, but we already have a bunch of people signed up for it. So it's going to be in late September. You'll have to pardon me. I'll have to look at a calendar. I think it's the 24th, 25th, somewhere. It's last week of September. 3 days here on the farm. Kind of our signature thing that we've done for the last I think 6 years now is this Farrow to Finish and Marketing School, where we go from all the way from birthing pigs all the way to how to sell them and how we do it. So if that's something that interests you and you want to spend 3 days on the farm with us, check that out at farmbuilder.us. Maybe I'll drop a link into this video post doing it. And yeah, love to have you come out. We've already got a bunch of people signed up for it, even though we haven't advertised it at all. They sniffed it out and found it. So we'll get that posted up. Value Life Farm, thanks for all you do sharing knowledge and experience. Been a big help for us in many ways. And that's what I love doing is, not every one of us needs to reinvent the wheel every time, and sharing the lessons that we've had along the way for how to do this at scale. That's what we started Farm Builder for, was how to build a farm that can pay full-time salaries. And nothing against homesteads or farmsteads, but just be that bigger operation that can really move the needle for the local food movement. Let's see, average price per pound for a pig out your way. So like right now we are selling finished hogs at $2.25 a pound live weight. So if you want to buy a pot load of finished hogs, that's the price. We're going to put them on the scale, weigh them, and send it your way. Some people, that's a high price. For other people, they're like, send me some right now. So, but the important thing is that's the price that we need to charge, which always is the key thing. It does not matter what someone in California is charging for something, New York, Florida, Texas, wherever. It's what price do you need to charge on your farm for your product. That always has to be the starting point before you look at anything else. And yes, Todd, I think came out to one of our first class, so a plank holder, the very first farm to Farrow to Finish and Marketing School. But yeah, so been a good time hanging out with you guys here tonight. I got an early morning tomorrow as always. Switch over to Facebook here, see if there's any more comments there. I think we're good to go. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate hanging out here tonight. Been a pretty consistent, like 25, 30 people here on YouTube. So enjoyed all that. Try to make it more regular. I promise. I will do my best. We do have a lot of ideas for content, and we'll try to be like real YouTubers. Put out regular content and have sponsored posts and all this kind of stuff. But definitely appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll see you around next time. Stay safe out there. Keep the diesel tanks full and keep the freezers full. So we'll see you guys next time. Have a good night.